Ready? Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Tess Judge, and I serve as a member of the Board of Transportation representing Highway Division 1 for the state of North Carolina. I certainly hope everyone enjoyed the general session this morning, and we had a lot of wonderful, valuable information that was shared with us. We certainly are happy today because we have an exciting line of panelists for this session. One of our three panelists will share their experience and insight as leaders within the transportation industry. To introduce these speakers, I'd now like to invite to the podium session moderated Robin Barfield, who serves as Director in Management, Safe and Risky Management at DOT. Robin?
Well, good morning. Thank you, Tess, for that introduction. We're so grateful for your service on our Board of Transportation. And thank you all for being here today for this important session. As Tess mentioned, this session is packed with really great information about the advancement of safety measures in the areas of tech, policy reform, and modernized infrastructure. Before I introduce our first speaker, just a few housekeeping tips that I'd like to mention. Applause is always welcome, but please try to hold it to the end of the speaker's presentations, and then following the presentations, we'll take some questions at the end and transition into our panel discussion. Once the panelists have had time to share their thoughts, I will then open up the conversation to the audience for you to ask anything you might like from this morning's session. Our first speaker is Bernard Jackson. He serves as Chief Operations Officer at the New York City Metro Transportation Authority. With more than 38 years of experience in transit operations, Bernard is a highly accomplished transit leader who has consistently driven employee engagement and customer satisfaction. Before joining New York City Transit, he served as Chief Operations Officer at the Dallas Area Rapid Transit and Chief Operations Officer of the Service Delivery at Los Angeles County Metro Transportation Authority. Prior to his time at LA Metro, Bernard worked at Chicago Transit Authority for 28 years as Vice President of Bus Operations and Director of Rail Operations. He is a Loyola University Chicago graduate, in addition to being a member of the American Public Transportation Association and the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials. He has earned many national certifications. Please join me in welcoming Bernard Jackson.
Well, thank you, Robin, for that esteemed introduction. You guys are probably wondering if he has that many years of service in public transit. When did he start? When he was like 9, 10 years old or something? And it's funny, I did. It was right out of college. I'm not sure how my career morphed into transit, but this career pathway journey has been amazing. I certainly wouldn't trade it for anything. So thank you for having me here today. I am, again, Bernard Jackson. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at New York City Transit, meaning I oversee service management and service delivery operations for all New York Transit City modes of operations, including subway, buses, and paratransit. It's great to be here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I often wonder, because I'm a big sports fan, like, Duke, North Carolina State. I mean, it kind of goes back and forth, and by a round of applause, is it the Tar Heels or is it the Blue? No, you don't have to. Heels? Okay. I look forward to that matchup every single year. But again, it's great to be here. My transit career spans several decades, from starting out at CTA Chicago to Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transit Agency to Dallas, and now New York City Transit. For those of you that's keeping scorecards, that means I've actually worked at the 3 largest transit agencies in North America. It's pretty incredible. And so I've experienced myself firsthand the value of public transit and what that means in order for us to be able to provide service to our community, to our communities. And what simply amazes me about this opportunity that I find myself in now with New York City Transit, and I have to read this just to remind myself, about the MTA. What does that mean? The Metropolitan Transit Authority is North America's largest transportation network, serving a population of 15 million people across 5,000 square miles travel area surrounding New York City, Long Island, Southeast New York State, and Connecticut. Tremendous responsibility. It's like an engine within itself. And you think about all the modes of transportation or service modes that are provided by the MTA. You're talking bridges and tunnels, which you have almost 900,000 to 1 million cars that pass along that thoroughfare every single day. You have our construction and development group that just recently, Governor Hochul and the state legislatures approved $65 billion capital plan, 4 or 5 year plan to invest in infrastructure, signal modernization, facilities upgrades. We're certainly looking forward to that opportunity. And then you talk about our commuter rail service, which is Metro North and Long Island Railroad, which is the largest commuter rail lines operating within the U.S. market. And of course, the crown jewel of it all is New York City Transit. The bus service that we deliver is the largest bus service in the U.S. market. In fact, we just recently launched the second final phase of our Queen Bus redesign network, just went into effect this past Labor Day. Queens County alone moves 900,000 weekday passengers alone, just in Queens. Imagine that, Queens alone. Overall, we provide about 1.3 million bus riders every single weekday. Our parent transit service, which continues to grow every single day, has about 50,000 rides that are registered each and every day. And of course, the crown jewel of it all is New York City Subway. You're talking about 27 rail lines, 472 stations, 30,000 employees in a city that never sleeps. The subway system is the economic engine that drives the whole entire region. 6,500 rail cars with a system that never really stops. And of course, nothing is more important to us than being able to operate our system safely. You can't move people reliably or efficiently without doing it safely. We actually run a 3-4 minute headway on Sunday night into Times Square at 12 o'clock midnight on a Sunday night. We have four platforms that are full with customers and riders at 12 o'clock midnight on a Sunday night. It's just a normal day. And somebody asked me recently, as we were having discussions about the World Cup planning and process and making sure that we align properly, and I'm on several different committees that are preparing for that across the U.S. market. Every day is a special event in New York City. Every single day is an event within itself. Our total daily weekday ridership is almost 6 million daily commuters every single day, and each one of those 6 million people have a story to tell about their commute. And we take that feedback and we really appreciate it, and we do our best to try to make sure that those commutes are handled safely. But keeping safety at the forefront of everything we do does not come at the expense of looking at innovation ways to improve service. For us, it kind of goes hand in hand. I guess I got to move this. Oh, somebody's already helping me with the, appreciate it. A modern signal system, which we recently implemented, was the communication-based train control model. First agency in the U.S. that tapped into this new signaling system. Of course, New York City Transit MTA, we're always on the cutting edge of trying to explore new innovation and ways to improve our service. We talk about the challenges that come along with moving millions of people around the century-old system. Some of the signal systems date back to the Roosevelt era. In fact, most of our delays are associated with signal failures because of the aging infrastructure that we have to deal with every single day. And we are bringing communication-based control to the subway system, which is CBTC. It provides riders with a faster, smoother, more reliable, and more frequent service, and ensures that train crews are operating in the safest environment possible. And so far on the couple of rail lines that we have already implemented this, guess what, folks? Those are the most reliable service lines that we have in the system. And you don't have to take my word for it. You could just you talk to cities like London, international markets that have already tapped into this technology, where you see faster, more reliable, more dependable, more safe service. We have 2 lines that are fully functional right now. We have our new R211 rail cars with the open gangways, the shiny new pristine cars. Nothing like a new car. It's just something about a new car that excites people, and we continue to bring on more of those assets as well. So while we're continuing to bring transformation technology to a larger swath of the system, it's not easily to do this. This is a complex project that takes time to install this new technology. It takes time to test out this technology. And with all that comes an inconvenience to our customers while we're trying to implement these new technologies. And we work closely with all of our community organizations to make sure that we get the word out in advance if there's going to be an extended outage as a result of this new technology being introduced, how we can provide reliable service, how we can provide additional alternate opportunities for transportation. That's the great thing about New York City Transit, 27 rail lines. You don't have to go very far to find some alternate service. You just pretty much go around the corner and there's another station. It may not take you directly to your location, but if you walk around the block, I'm sure you'll be in close striking distance to where you're trying to commute to. And I'm thrilled that the MTA is making this big investment in CBTC when planning out where future capital expenditures will be allocated. More lines across the city are slated for these upgrades, which means more New Yorkers, more visitors to the region will experience faster, smoother trips and more train crews operating in a better environment than the modern technology can provide. Next slide. The next item that we are extremely excited about is that's helping our bus times, our bus speeds, is the ACE program, the automatic camera enforcement that we've installed on our buses that helps provide us real-time visual technology of cars that are blocking our passageway, the cars and trucks and delivery trucks that are preventing our buses from getting down the street in a timely manner. And you guys know, if you visited New York City, how difficult it is to navigate around all the different challenges that exist. But the ACE doesn't just make the faster trips, it also keeps bus operators and riders and pedestrians and drivers safe in those commutes. We're challenged with all kind of different modes of transportation in New York City, from e-bikes to pedestrian traffic to vehicle traffic. And so buses are not changing lanes and cyclists are not making crazy turns to jump around double parked cars. Operators have better visibility to see these pedestrians. The ACE cameras actually are capable of producing violations when folks are obstructing the bus thoroughfare. And we've seen a lot of positive results from there. Our violators, we don't see the recidivism of violators continually to block our buses. And keeping the bus stops clear is critical to ensuring accessibility and safety of riders with disability. All buses are ADA accessible. We're making it hard to make the subway. We're working hard to make the subway system accessible as well through multiple different avenues of investments to adding more elevators, escalators, etc. So that means buses often function as a lifeline to those who need them to most. If a bus can't reach the curb, someone who uses a wheelchair or has a disability is waiting to board. It forces them to board the bus in the street, which is pretty dangerous for those commuters, our most vulnerable commuters. Using innovative technology to create safer environments for employees and customers is the key to our success. As we look to modernize the system, whether that be new technology like the programs I just went over, or that be through exploring infrastructure improvements like updating our fare array system, which we're very proud of. Our new Omni card is already launched. We expect to have a cashless system. So when you're visiting New York City, all you need to do is tap and go, and you can board any of our modes of transportation. I look forward to hearing from the other panelists here and learning from them on how we at New York City Transit can do better and improve. And I really want to thank you all for inviting me and being a part of this discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. That was very impressive indeed. Our second speaker is Laura Chase, serving as the president and CEO of ITS America since August of 2021. Laura is a leading advocate for intelligent transportation technologies. Her work focuses on advancing policies that save lives, reduce congestion and emissions, and improve mobility for all Americans. With over 2 decades of experience in trade association management, strategic planning, and communications, she has a proven record of implementing complex initiatives through collaboration. Previously, Laura held positions at U.S. Telecom, the American Trucking Association, and the Clinton administration at the U.S. Department of Justice and the White House. Please join me in welcoming Laura Chase.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I have my phone up here to check the time, so I'll try to be speedy. So we heard a really compelling examples of technology and innovation, that a transit agency is using. I'm going to give a perspective, a national perspective. So ITS America is a national organization. North Carolina DOT is a member. We have transit agencies, states, cities, private sector companies, automakers, technology companies, telecom, infrastructure suppliers, the whole list from the private sector, and then research and academia, who all come together in our membership to really ultimately try to align safety policy with innovation, right? To make sure that the regulations and the policies that we have at the national level allow for the safe integration of emerging technologies in our transportation system. So I'm going to give you the sort of national view. And I'd like to start with this slide because I'm old enough to remember this. So, on the left is the Eisenhower interstate system in the 50s, right? And it's essentially physical infrastructure, but it was transformational in how it connected people. It brought new economic opportunities. It brought new connections for everybody, who ended up being touched by the interstate system. In the middle is the 1980s, the birth of the internet, right? I remember the days of DOS and dial-up and all the things, right? But that was transformational. It completely changed our connections in the digital space. Now, here we are, I like to say, on the right side of this slide, and this is the opportunity that we are all trying to harness. And this is that full integration of the digital and physical layers of our transportation system, right? And that's really where we are right now. And if you don't get what I'm talking about, just think about, how did you get where you were going today? How do you get to work? How do you travel? You use this. And it's a digital system that is actually giving you your directions. So how do road operators and people who build and maintain and operate physical infrastructure, how can they be more integrated with all of our digital tools, with the cars, we're gonna hear from Jim, with the cars that are driving on our roadways right now, right, which are so advanced and are connected and are essentially, computers on wheels. How can we ensure that our system is modernized and integrated in a way so we can take advantage of all of this? Number one, to improve safety. That's always the ultimate goal. But number two, to improve mobility for everybody and to improve movement of goods, right? To create those opportunities for people no matter where they live. So in my view, technology has never been more relevant. And that's not just because we actually have so many more tools at our disposal right now. It's also because we have so much more data that's being generated by everything in our system. Cars, sensors, phones, people, everyone is generating data. And we need to be able to harness that data to use it to help our physical infrastructure perform better, to help us get more out of it, and to help us move people more safely. So I think there's a lot of things I'll talk about, but I want to talk about the evolving our approach really quickly. Because to me, the X factor with the technologies that we have today is not, that it's a cool technology, which a lot of them are. It's what they can deliver. And what they can deliver at their core is that we can go from a reactive approach to safety to a proactive approach to safety. So what I mean by that is our traditional methods of assessing safety are waiting for crash reports, waiting for fatality reports, right? Getting those reports and then assessing, okay, I have a problem in this corridor, at this intersection, on this interstate, wherever it may be, and I need to then figure out an approach to fix that. We don't have to do that anymore. We have the data in real time. We can proactively see where are the risks happening, where are the crashes happening, where's the hard braking, that data I'm getting from that GM vehicle, right? Why is that happening in this one area? What are the challenges and risks that we see? And then where do I put my limited resources to address those high-risk areas first and plan better for the future, right? And so we have this ability through all sorts of technologies, whether you're talking about artificial intelligence, whether you're talking about the digitization of our infrastructure, connectivity, automated vehicles, all of it. We have this ability to be more proactive in our work. Bernard talked a lot about their system. They're using AI. I will just say they're using AI for predictive maintenance of a fleet. When you have a fleet that large that is moving millions of people a day, if you can know proactively before a bus even gets back to the depot exactly what maintenance it needs and have that maintenance ready, you're creating, that's creating a safer journey for people. You're not gonna have a bus that breaks down on its route because you just didn't know, right? I mean, that's just one example among just hundreds of examples. So what are we doing? In 2005, there's a lot of work happening in this space. I'm not going to go through all these in detail. I think some of these you guys all know, but I think one of the areas where there's a lot of focus right now is we have so much data and there's so much AI being used. We really, as an industry, need to really focus on our data governance and security and privacy. That's a big issue for customers and consumers, right? We want to understand how our data is being used, and we want to ensure that it's being secured. And so that's an area where there's been more focus in the past year, and I think there will be even more focus going forward. Building an intelligent system, which is ultimately the goal that we're all trying to achieve to improve safety here, is not just one technology, right? It is this integration of multiple technologies and a systems level approach. And these three examples are all really good examples of technology solutions that improve safety. This AI platform that many states now use has incredible metrics in terms of, like 20% safer roads, 22%, I think, reduction in secondary crashes. It can determine incidents. It can detect incidents about any average from like 12 to 18 minutes faster than traditional methods. And so it's actually having a real impact on safety and on mobility. Connected vehicle technology, as we know, the ability to communicate wireless messages between vehicles and infrastructure or vehicles and vehicles is critical for safety. It allows vehicles and road users to see beyond their line of sight, something that even with all of the great sensors on vehicles today and even with automated vehicles, if you don't have that level of connectivity, you don't have that ability to see beyond your line of sight. Some people like to call it like the ears. It's adding a sense, right? So right now, sensors on vehicles can see what they see, but you cannot see what's behind a building or what's around a corner, or a cyclist who's about to cross into your lane, or a child who's about to run out from behind the delivery van. That's what connected vehicle technology can enable. It can enable all of those messages so you get that alert in time to make a better decision, to stop, right? To perhaps slow down before there's a pile up ahead on the highway that you can't see, right? To slow down because there's ice on the roadway, all of that. And then, we talked about the vulnerable road user safety. Again, a lot of crashes and safety issues are happening at intersections. We know that. And people outside the vehicles are more subjective to a higher injury rate. So we have the technology today to be able to integrate these things into our system. So what's our dilemma? Our dilemma here really is our funding. So in the last transportation reauthorization, less than 0.1% went to technology. So we're trying to fix that going forward because innovation is essential. It should not be a luxury. But too often we think of it as a luxury. So we're trying to flip the script, and we're trying to say, it's time we rethink how we invest and how we can modernize our system. So we have proposals around our surface transportation reauthorization, which I won't bore you with, but the point is, innovation isn't just about doing the same things differently, it's about doing different things. And that means how we invest, that means how we plan, that means how we build, how we operate our system, and leveraging these tools to do it better and deliver better results. Finally, you all know these stats. I won't belabor them. This is why, when we invest, we actually gain a system that thrives. And to me, this is also a question of risk management, which we don't often think about or talk about in transportation. I mean, if we're really assessing, like, what is the risk on our system? If we really start to think about it and assess it in a different way, let's put our money into solutions that actually change the trajectory, right? That flip the script. Very quickly, I'll end here. This is why this is important to me. I have 3 kids, 3 teenagers. My daughter, the youngest, is gonna be driving. She's getting her permit in like 2 months, and I'm terrified, even though I have 2 boys who are teenagers and they drive. But this is why it's important, because I'm tired of saying, call me when you get there, right? We should not have to say that. I wanna have confidence for my kids, for your families, for all of us who use our roadways, no matter what mode you're on. I want to have confidence that we know that we can deliver a safe journey. And so that's why it's important to me, and that's why I'm passionate about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. I love that last slide because I share that same passion. Our final speaker today is Mitch Peterson. He is a member of the public engagement team at General Motors. In his role at GM, Mitch serves as a subject matter expert and trainer for the EV First Responder Training Program. Prior to joining GM, he retired from a 28-year career as a firefighter and a paramedic with the Detroit Metropolitan Area Fire Department. Throughout his fire service career, Mitch served in many roles, including fire chief during his last 6 years. He is a certified fire instructor and EMS instructor and earned a bachelor's degree in public safety administration and a master's of business administration. Please join me this morning in welcoming Mitch Peterson.
Good morning. Thank you, Robin, for the introduction. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. It's very exciting to be here with you all today. I love conferences like this when all these professionals gather together to learn and collaborate. These are fantastic. So it's a great opportunity. I appreciate you inviting me to come here today. So as Robin said in the introduction, my name is Mitch Peterson. I'm the Public Safety Engagement Lead for General Motors and OnStar. I retired from the fire service, retired as a fire chief, and came here to General Motors, specifically retired to take this job because I saw the value in what General Motors was trying to do in a safety-first approach. General Motors, Laura just talked a second ago about a proactive approach to safety instead of reactive. And as we started to see the growth of electric vehicles on the road, they very quickly recognized we were going to have to get out there and start training folks on how to deal with these and understanding them, right? So I retired specifically to take this job. I saw the value in that. I think it's an honor to be out and be able to travel the country and train everyone on how to respond to incidents involving battery electric vehicles. When we talk about responding to incidents involving battery electric vehicles, the trainings that we do are not specific to first responders. Obviously, there's a first responder element there for police, fire, and EMS because they're going to be out there and dealing with some of these. But the incidents in general that we talk about could be as simple as one of these electric vehicles disabled on your roadways or abandoned on a roadway. I heard a story yesterday about having to move vehicles ahead of time off of a roadway. And by the way, in Michigan, we don't have hurricanes, right? So I don't know anything about moving stuff ahead of time and how those things work. I just know a lot about heavy snow. But I heard a story yesterday about having to move abandoned vehicles ahead of time before a storm surge came in. And I understand that there's some concern about towing electric vehicles. How do we address these? If this thing is just parked somewhere and we don't know anything about it, what do we have to do? So our training is focused on getting that information out to police, fire, EMS, towing operators, anybody that operates a salvage yard or a towing yard that may store one of our vehicles there. Bridge and tunnel operators, DOTs, anybody that may come in contact with our vehicles and have questions, that training was developed just to do that. Let's see if I can advance this slide. Here we go. So the training that we developed was designed to not just talk about the incidents, but to really give everybody a background on electric vehicles, to give them an understanding of how the technology works. There's a lot of information that's out there that's available, but you have to go out and dig for it. So we tried to put together a training program that provided that information, starting with, how does this thing work? Everybody here drives vehicles, right? And we all kind of have an idea. We can pop the hood, and most of us can identify the alternator or where we put the oil or where the windshield washer fluid goes. But when you open the hood of an electric vehicle, or you look underneath it, it looks very different. And a lot of times, nobody has any real understanding of how it operates. The components of electrification are all hidden away, so if you look underneath the vehicle at where the battery is, I think it's just advancing on its own, but that's okay. If you look underneath the vehicle where the battery is, you can't see the components of the battery. Instead, you just see a robust plate that's there to protect the battery. So we want to make sure that everyone had some understanding of how these vehicles operate, what the components of electrification are, what the differences are between an electrified vehicle and an internal combustion engine vehicle, and then we moved into what happens when we encounter these. What if we have to tow one? What if we have one that's on fire? What if we have one that's involved in a crash and we have to extricate somebody from it, and we have to start cutting into this vehicle? Where can we cut? Where can we stay away from the components of electrification for safety? So we designed this program. We traveled to, there we go. We traveled to 35 locations across the U.S. and Canada, provided this training, and by the way, we did the training for free. General Motors picked up the cost on all of this. We provided training to over 8,000 attendees. They got 4 hours of direct delivery training. We split this training into a number of different modules, beginning with the basics of electrification, how EVs actually work, then moved into the different types of incidents, towing, fires, extrication, and all the different elements of that, so that when somebody left, they'd be at least familiar with what an electric vehicle is and how to deal with it. Now, I always say this, I work for General Motors, but I have the honor of working for an automotive company where I don't have to sell vehicles. Instead, we're out there and we're trying to improve safety. So we tried to make this program what I call as brand agnostic as possible. My goal was, if I sat in a room with you for 4 hours and provided EV training, that if you left and encountered any electric vehicle on an incident on your roadway, it wouldn't matter. The information that I gave you was valid for that, whether it was our vehicle or another manufacturer. That training, we went on for 35 locations over about 18 months. We continue to do those in-person trainings, but more on a kind of in-demand or on-demand situation. I have 2 coming up in different states over the next month, but it's not that 35 on the schedule. We were going from one to the next. But to make sure that we could get this information out as far as we could, to as many people as we could, we converted this training to an online program as well. So we had it professionally developed. See if that goes. There we go. We had it professionally developed into a virtual training. It's learning management system based. It requires only an email to log in, and we're not collecting your email, so I can send you any information. But instead, we collect your email because it's about a 2.5-hour training when you log in. And if you log in, you start the training, you do 30 minutes of it on your lunch hour, and you log out. You can log back in your email and continue where you were. I just hold your place in the training. All right, but our goal was to be able to get this information out to as many people as we could. I was very realistic and knew that as much as I want to get my eyes and my hands on everybody that has an interest on electric vehicles and responding to incidents involving them, I can't do that. No matter how big our team was, we would never do that. So if we made it a virtual model, people can log in anywhere. People with any sort of interest in this, whether they're in police, fire, EMS, or they work on the roadways or anything else, they can log in and do this. So this is not just limited to public safety personnel, but anybody that has an interest in these vehicles and respond to these vehicles. So this is the front page of what the training looks like. On the bottom, call your attention to online training modules button. That takes you to the training. But on the right there, the other resources. This is an important part. And I'll give you a QR code at the end of this presentation. You can take you to this page. The other resources part is an ongoing library of materials that not only I, but other experts from General Motors continuously are gathering information about electric vehicles. If we see a resource that's out there that is valid and valuable, we may put a link on there, and that way if you're looking for something. So everything from towing information to information about how to store EVs, what happens with EV batteries, how they get recycled, all of those questions that we got through those trainings, we turned it into a resource manual. So that button will take you there as well. Okay, next slide. Here we go. That's what the training looks like. It's broken into 6 modules. Those are the instructors for the 35 trainings. We use them, including me, for the virtual program as well. But you can start this in any order that you want to, except for the last one is the closeout, and we just go through some regular questions. But again, about 2.5 to 3 hours if you get in the training, but you can take it in pieces. One thing I want to call your attention to, does anybody in this room recognize this document? By show of hands? I see one back there, but he's cheating because he works with me. This document right here, this is what we call a rescue document for a Hummer EV, right? One of our products. This document is probably the most valuable tool to a term that I've coined is up your EV IQ. These documents are available for every single electric vehicle sold in the United States. So if you see an electric vehicle traveling through your community, or you're considering buying one, or if you have one in your neighborhood or anything else, or if you encounter one as part of your job and you want some information on it, this 4-page document is available for that car. Now, it used to be a kind of a voluntary compliance as a Society of Automotive Engineers requirement for these vehicles, but just recently, NHTSA now requires every auto manufacturer to publish these and publish them on the NHTSA website. So before last month, these were collected in a couple of different places. The most reliable place to get it was the automotive manufacturers themselves. But there were a couple of online clearinghouses that would collect this information, but it was very difficult to get to. NHTSA now requires us to submit these to their portal, and every time we update any information in there, it has to be updated immediately in the portal, so you're getting the most recent information. These documents are formatted the same way, so if you look at this one for a Hummer EV, and then you're to walk out and you find an EV on the road and look that one up, it's gonna look exactly the same. Obviously, the vehicle's different, there's different information, but the formatting's the same. And that way, if you're familiar with one, you're familiar with all of them. You build some dexterity. But this provides kind of the basic safety information about each of those, from where the components of electrification are, to how to tow these, right? The voltage, where the different things are, and how to move these vehicles around. These are the safety sheets that are used, certainly used by public safety, but anybody that has an interest in electric vehicles should probably take a look at these. That's the link to the NHTSA website. I'll have a QR code at the end that kind of takes you to where we are, and you can get to all these as well. Okay, there's the QR code right there. This QR code will take you to the EV training. That was the front page that I showed. About 2.5 to 3 hours of training, certainly. But the other resources link, if you're not in the mood to sit through, and I'll be honest with you, of that 2.5 to 3 hours, I'm about 45 or 50% of that. So if you're not enjoying listening to me today, you certainly don't want to log into that. But the other resources section, there's a tremendous number of things. We have kind of a weekly cadence where we all look at different things. Several of us go through, we kind of vet the information that's there. It's not just GM information, it comes from NHTSA, it comes from Underwriters Laboratory, studies about vehicles burning, all those things, but we add it to there once we've kind of verified that it's good information. That's going to be your friend if you have any questions about electrification of vehicles. So thank you again for having me. It was such an honor to be invited here today. Glad to see everybody. Glad to be here in North Carolina. This would be great for me if this were in January, because I'll have about 18 inches of snow in my house, and I don't suspect you'll have that here. But again, thank you.
Thank you, Mitch. Appreciate that. Great information. Safety is really important with EV. We have to be careful. We'll now move to our panel portion this morning, and we've already got some questions in. The first question, what does mindful mobility mean in your respective roles, and how do you see it reshaping safety priorities in the next 5 years? Start with Bernard.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Robin. It's a great question. Certainly for MTA New York City Transit, I mean, we cannot afford to compromise when it comes to safe operations. You literally have thousands and thousands of trains that are in rotation during the height of the peak, the AM and PM peak. Trains come into the station, thousands of people board, thousands of people alight. Doors close within 10 seconds. Dwell time, that train has to be out of the station and on to the next station, because guess what? You got a lot of trains that are waiting in rotation and get into that station. At some point during our PM, AM, PM peak, we have more trains in rotation than we have stations. Think about that. We got 472 stations. We actually have more trains that are in rotation throughout the whole entire network that are waiting to get into a station. So we cannot afford to compromise when it comes to safety at all. We introduced our new R211 subway cars. They go through strenuous testing, commissioning, burn-in process to ensure that all the mechanisms are working properly. Our employees are trained constantly around the clock before we even introduce that equipment into our revenue service. So it's extremely important for us when we talk about safety. We focus on the FTA safety management system, which means top-down, bottom-up safety. Everything begins and ends with the president, of course, myself, and it just flows down to our frontline employees. And of course, when we think about that,
You know, there's always this constant battle between we want faster trains, we want faster buses, but we want safer service as well. Safety usually doesn't get the attention until something drastically happens. We try to make sure that that conversation is always at the forefront of what we're doing in any of our modes of transportation. Safety systems should mean better service for us.
Thank you, Bernard. Well said. Laura, improvements to safety increasingly rely on real-time data. How can agencies, automakers, and technology organizations work together to share safety-critical data while respecting privacy concerns?
Thank you, Robin. Can you hear me? It's a good question, and it's a tricky one. It's something that we're working on at the national level right now. The quippy answer is we need a national privacy law, which is true, but I don't know that we're going to get there. So in the meantime, right, it's up to essentially all of us, right? The companies, the agencies, and everyone who is collecting and using data to really ensure that they have the right security protocols in place and that they have the right privacy systems in place. We actually focused on this year because, again, consumers want to understand how is our data being used, and and what type of personal data, right, might you have access to. And so we created, IHS America created a privacy policy under a couple different areas. Responsible data usage, right, minimizing data collection. What do you really need to achieve your objective? Collect that data. Don't collect reams of data that you don't need. Ensuring that personal information is secured and you have systems for that, right? Ensuring that you are putting a higher bar, right, to that personally identifiable information. And operating with transparency to build trust, right? So there are consumers out there who are like, you know what, you can have my data if you're giving me this service, right? There are people who are fine with that, but they want to know. And there are people who are like, you're not getting my data, I'm not giving it to you, don't care. That's fine. We need to be able to have systems in place where we are being transparent with people about how the data is being used and who it might be shared with. One of the things that we struggle with, quite frankly, if I'm being totally open about the privacy, is, and our policy states this, is there is a tension between consumer information and maintaining consumers' preference to perhaps not have their information collected and beneficial use cases for society. And we as an organization are very worried about, we don't want certain information to be, certain data to be taken off the table that would be really critical for example, safety, right? A lot of use cases around safety. And so that's why we think if we can start to really operate with more transparency, more privacy protocols in place so people feel more confident about how their data is being used, hopefully we can get there and we can keep that aggregated anonymized information, right, which is what agencies want. They're not looking for personally identifiable information. They're looking for those aggregated data sets that tell them where they have a safety issue or where there could be a problem that they need to address. And so we want to make sure that those those use cases are still viable and that we don't go too far down the path of limiting access to information while at the same time building that trust.
Thank you, Laura. Mitch, in your career, I'm sure you've seen this unfold. Human behavior often undermines safety systems. So what proven strategies have you seen for building a culture of safety in both the workforce and the public?
That's an absolutely great question. And we know that human influence on everything often causes problems, right? I mean, whether it's driving or anything else. As an automaker, we kind of exist in this ecosystem of safety, right? And it starts right with our employees, right inside of our manufacturing facilities, honestly, right inside all of our offices. A lot of us work remotely from home, and we start a lot of our meetings with a safety message. And they're interesting safety messages because some of us are working remotely, and we talk about normal safety things that live in your life. But we try to foster this culture of safety first all the time. We treat safety as our #1 priority. We have this very robust occupational safety program. We have great systems that allow employees to identify safety issues. And whether it's an issue in the workplace or honestly an issue with a vehicle or your neighbor's vehicle. If your neighbor says, hey, my GM, my Chevy, whatever, misbehaved and did this, and that seems unsafe, and we can submit that in a system. And it's not a system that somebody reads the email and says, that doesn't sound too serious. This is a system that requires a panel discussion, some investigation, and a resolution by a safety panel. Now, as we branch into and very quickly growing our electrified portfolio, that's a special area of occupational safety, right? And so we have a team within the occupational safety group that specifically deals with that. Now, technology is going to help improve that human influence as well, right? So as we see autonomous vehicle operations and just some of the stuff that's in the vehicles today, right? So your adaptive cruise control, your lane keep assist, and all of those different features are in there, and they do make for a better driving experience as well. But they're really designed around safety and to kind of take that human influence out. I'm just like everybody else. Have I been distracted when I'm driving and drove on the shoulder a little bit and got there? Absolutely. We've all done that. And those vehicles now are able to warn you that it's time to pay attention, right? Put your phone down or whatever it is that you're doing that's not paying attention. Do that now. For us, though, in this ecosystem of safety, we also push very hard into after our vehicles are on the road. We want to make sure that anybody that comes in contact with our vehicles, our customers that are driving it, people that are around it, pedestrians that are on the roadway, or the first responders or anybody else that are going to come in contact with our vehicles, we want to make sure they're safe as well, and that goes with the training. I'll tell a very quick story. When we first got a vehicle, my wife and I had young children, and it was the first vehicle we had that had a backup camera in it. Now, I'd been driving fire trucks for many, many years that you have to use the mirrors all the time, so this backup camera was like a video game to me. I didn't care that it was on there. And we hadn't owned that vehicle for more than a week, and I was backing out of the driveway, my full family in the vehicle, and my daughter, who was probably 7 at the time, said, "Look, Mommy, Ollie's on TV." And it was my 15-year-old Beagle that was slowly walking behind the car that I couldn't see him because he's so short. Now, that was a clue to me that technology is going to help me out, right? I probably would have run over the dog, would have been terrible, but I wasn't looking at the camera because why would I do that? I've got mirrors and I can turn my head, but those systems are developed for safety. So that's an example of human influence right there, my influence, not using the technology, but absolutely a full ecosystem of safety.
Thank you, Mitch. That's a touching example because I think we can all appreciate the backup camera world and what we see and the help that it generates along with the other technology, the alarms, the beeping, those types of things. Bernard, this next one I believe is right up your alley. It's perfect. And you've already touched on it a little bit, but maybe we can expand. Transportation extends to people from varying demographics. How do we ensure that safety innovations reach underserved and vulnerable populations, such as our rural communities, our seniors, our people with disabilities, rather than widening the mobility gap?
Yeah, that's a great question, Robin, and we deal with that every single day in New York City Transit. I mean, we have thousands of people coming into our stations, boarding our buses, some of our most vulnerable populations, folks with disabilities, and we work tirelessly to figure out how can we make the environment more safer, installing, new lift station, elevators, escalators, making our platform environment more safer for those customers that may have challenges trying to figure out how to navigate on the system. We've actually had our in-house maintenance folks develop platform barriers, and this took a lot of planning and practice. Of course, there was a lot of, incidents that happened where, people were ending up on the tracks. I mean, that's one of the challenges that you have to deal with in a major environment. But we have a team of maintenance folks that got together and came up with this idea. Let's see if we can create some sort of additional barrier that we can install on the platforms that kind of guide folks with disabilities and those that are coming from, hanging out in Times Square, maybe a little bit intoxicated. You think the train is coming into the station, but the train is actually leaving the station, trying to make sure we keep you in a position where you can safely board the trains. These have been very effective. We targeted areas where we have seen an increased activity of folks ending up on the tracks or coming in contact with the trains. We've seen a lot of positive results preventing folks from actually ending up in those type of situations. We intend to expand this even more so throughout the whole entire network because it has proven to be successful in trying to combat folks from ending up on the tracks or ending up in an uncompromising positions. And certainly it means more for our employees because anytime an employee has to deal with a tragic event of somebody, unfortunately ending up being struck by a train, that's a very devastating situation for our employees as well. But we're very pleased with the results. Our disability community, our seniors are very pleased with the results that it's providing so far. We think platform barriers are probably eventually going to spread throughout other transit agencies as well.
Thank you, Bernard. Laura and Mitch, I'd like you to weigh in on this thought here. Public transit in densely populated cities face different safety challenges than personal vehicles on open roads. Where can lessons from each sector be shared, and where are the boundaries?
So it's definitely true that the challenges are different, but I think there are solutions and tools that, again, the tool might be slightly different, but the objectives are the same, right? Like one example I can give is I know that agencies like Bernard's are piloting new technology that can detect, vibrations on the rail track, right, underground. Like when you have thousands of miles of rail track, you need a system, right, to understand where might there be deficiencies or areas where we need to address maintenance. And so it's like this idea of having intelligence, right, on your infrastructure system in a more holistic way. And on the roadway, we see a lot of states and other agencies using camera-based technology with an AI machine learning algorithm to understand, essentially tells engineers exactly where is this 2-foot section of guardrail damaged on my highway, right? Where is the interstate sign obscured by an overgrown tree? Where is a stop sign, has it been knocked down? In the past, with each of these examples, you'd be sending out track crews, you'd be sending out, maintenance engineers. It's putting humans in a more dangerous situation, right? It's also a much more intensive, use of resources. Now there's technologies that in either case can give you that intelligence on your system that you can not only take back, but you can get really pinpointed accuracy of where do you need to make those, investments. And then I think similarly on predictive maintenance, right? We see it a lot on fleets, right? I know even as an automaker, I'm sure you can talk about what, GM does. Again, I mentioned that, agencies like MTA and others are using predictive maintenance on their fleets. But even on the infrastructure side, agencies are using predictive maintenance now with combinations of sensors, drones, and machine learning. This is happening. Imagine if North Carolina DOT would know exactly where a bridge deficiency is before a human eye can detect it and be able to do the maintenance, and you wouldn't have another bridge collapse, right? Like those kinds of things. So I think there's a lot of parallels. It's just the application's slightly different. So that's what I see.
Thank you, Laura.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think what we're seeing with the advances in AI technology and predictive technologies, it gives us that kind of edge to start looking at these things ahead of time and again, being proactive instead of reactive. I think another area that is very related is the vehicle to everything technology, the VDAC stuff. When we can pull all of these things together and have these vehicles connected and everything kind of knows what everything else is doing, that's certainly a huge value, right? So when I talked earlier about, putting our vehicles on the road and not only concerned with the safety of our customers that are in the vehicles, but also everybody that's around them, right? Starting to understand what's going on in intersections, starting to understand what's going on with public transit and where the buses are moving and where these things are, all of that tied in. So the vehicles, the AI technology, the predictive technology can start making some decisions and take the human influence out of that a little bit is certainly going to be an advance for us as these industries kind of cross paths all the time, which they do every day, particularly in a city like that. All of that technology, all of those transportation modes are crossing paths all the time.
Thank you, Mitch. Bernard, you're our expert. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Laura touched on it. Predictive maintenance for us. I mean, we don't have a large window of opportunity to do maintenance on the system because we're running 24/7 service around the clock nonstop. So we rely heavily on that predictive maintenance, that AI, to kind of tell us in advance if a vehicle has reached some point where it's going to have some sort of breakdown with the brakes, the doors, air compressor system. That's valuable information for us. For us to shut down, we would have to completely shut down an entire rail line to give our teams enough time to actually go out there to perform maintenance on the service or inspections on our system. So this is a valuable tool that we have at our disposal to be able to give us this real-time predictive maintenance activity when a failure might occur. If there's some sort of stress fracture in the rail system and we know we need to get ahead of it in advance to try to make sure that the system doesn't come to a state of disrepair or collapses. So it works very well for us as well.
Thank you, sir. I believe we have a few more minutes to take any additional questions from members of our audience this morning. So if anybody has anything, please raise your hand and stand, and we'll bring you a microphone. Over here. Okay, that's fine. Sure.
Or sometime recently. Has it been an increase in ridership, and and has safety increased in the city as well?
Thank you for your question. I deliberately tried to stay away from that as much as I possibly could. Congestion pricing, as you all probably heard of, we're into our 9th month of rollout for that. We've seen some amazing results, especially with our bus systems that operate through Manhattan. That's traffic congestion there is it's a complete nightmare. We've seen faster speeds, more reliable service. You add our automatic camera enforcement tool into the process. You add our work that we're doing with the New York City Department of Transportation to make sure that they are working hand in hand to clear up some of those areas where we see even increased congestion taking place. We've seen some positive results of it so far. We hope to continue down that trend. Of course, there's a tremendous amount of revenue that's coming into the agency that helps with our operating budget and some of the challenges we have associated with that. So far, it has proven to be very, very successful up to this point. I'm sure others might disagree, depending on who you're having a conversation with. But the data that we're seeing right now has shown definitely what we intended. Less traffic through that corridor, more frequent bus service, more reliable service as well.
Can I add a quick anecdote to that? I'm from the Northeast and go to New York quite often. And before congestion pricing, my family and I were in New York City, and we had to get from the base of Central Park across town to the west side for dinner. We took the horse. Basically, the horses you can ride in Central Park. Well, the guy said, we'd ridden around, and the guy said, we got to go to the stables. They're on 9th Ave. It'll be faster. And we got there faster on the horse. So that's my own personal anecdote of pre-congestion pricing, traffic movement in New York City cross town, right? So.
Good morning. Quick question on the in-vehicle technology, and I think it's great, the new technology that helps you as you're navigating roadways. But I've noticed and heard of a number of times where some unintended consequences occur because of the technology. A couple examples. One had a friend that was going down the interstate, and there was a frontage along the interstate, and had a speed limit sign on it of 40, and of course the speed limit and he had it, I guess, on adaptive. Well, his car slowed down to 40 on the interstate, which was obviously unintended. Also, I've heard of instances where, for instance, at an off-ramp, the edge line striping could cause somebody to get some improper guidance. I'm just curious. I know there's always technology issues have to be worked through. Is there a entity or an agency or something that's kind of compiling these types of unintended consequences and advising state agencies or FHWA in terms of design standards that may need to be modified in order to, because right now it's probably not a big deal, but as we get further along and cars people start to let their cars take more control. I could see there being things like that could emerge.
So I think there's a lot of different groups that are paying attention to these, right? And of course, when you technology, there's always that curve where things aren't going perfect. There are also certain technologies that maybe get, and I'm certainly not saying ours, but there are certain technologies that maybe get released before they're ready for prime time, and we see some of these minor things where we miss an exit ramp or we veer off the road, or you mentioned a speed indicator that was different than what was posted there. I know that the Society of Automotive Engineers has a task force looking specifically at automated features in vehicles and the behavior of those. I know that there's a consortium of all the automakers, or most of the automakers participating, called Crash Avoidance Metrics Program. That's one of the divisions of that, is specifically looking at the automated features of the vehicle. And I'm not necessarily talking about automated vehicles, self-driving vehicles, but instead the adaptive cruise control, the lane keep assist, and those things, and looking at the different reports that come in and say, hey, I was doing 70 on the freeway because that's what the car said to do, and I got a ticket because it was actually a 50-mile-an-hour zone. Some of that's mapping issues, some of that's technology issues, some of that's a combination of multiple different things. But yes, absolutely, there are a number of different groups that have an interest in making sure that those things are understood and also improved as the programming and the technology continues.
So that's one of the things that we work on at ITS America, and agree with everything that Mitch said. This is why what we call digital infrastructure, this concept of digital infrastructure, is so important. A lot of those systems are either dependent on pre-mapped locations, right? And or what the sensors can see in real time. And I have a modern car that has good technology, and when I drive through a work zone, especially a particular work zone in DC where they're moving the lane lines, my car goes crazy, right? Because it wants to recenter me. So I have to just blinker this way, right? That's what I have to do, because we don't have the systems right now to share real-time data amongst disparate providers. That's what we're working on. So we're working on, at the national level with USDOT and with our state and private sector partners, we're working on a framework, a national framework for essentially digitizing information and being able to share it in real time, so that from disparate systems, right? Because right now you've got a lot of systems that have this data, but they can't all share together. And you also don't have, from many state agencies, real-time data on perhaps work zones or speed limits or other things. And so it's really dependent on sort of what that camera sees and how it interprets that. There are standards at Federal Highway. They're very aware of this. And I think some of this, again, is as technology comes out and evolves, right, there are hiccups that have to be solved, but we're looking at it at a broader national framework level, because what we ultimately want is we want for all the state agencies, all the vehicle manufacturers, all the providers, the Googles, the Waze, the INRICs, the whoever's, all of that data to be able to be shared and used in an interoperable system and in real time. And that's hard, but we're working on it.
Thank you.
I'll circle back.
Hi there. So the history of road safety, I think, in the U.S. and probably throughout the world has often been 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And it seems like a lot of times the step back is some public reaction to a new system or a new way of doing things. How do we build a receptiveness in the public for safer roadways and railways?
Well, I think it's very hard. I personally think we have a lot of the technologies that we need, but we don't necessarily have all of the kind of consumer acceptance and adoption, right? People say safety is important, but I'm sure, as my friend Jim will tell you, they aren't necessarily going to pay for it, right, on the lot. There's a lot of studies that show that people say safety is important, but then it's not what they prioritize in terms of their purchases or, their advocacy. And so I think the hardest thing about a lot of these technologies is they're invisible, and when they work, they're completely unremarkable, right? That's the hardest thing, because when these things work, you almost don't even know it. But when they don't work, you certainly do, because then tragedy happens, or something bad happens. So I do think we have to continue to tell the story of the volume, right, the scale and the scope of the safety problem on our roads. And we have to continue to bring consumers along that there is a better way. And this better way is actually more in tune with sort of how they want to move anyway, right? It's more in tune with getting them more seamless trips. I don't know about all of you, but in the DC area, you know, I travel through 3 different state jurisdictions just to get from my home to work, right? And our roadways in the physical world are made for that, but in this digital world, they're not. And we can significantly improve safety if we can figure that out, right? If we can start to figure that out. So I do think it's a continued conversation with consumers around what these safety features are, a little bit of how they work. I don't think people really need to get into the nitty-gritty, but enough so that they want to use them, and you know what they can be delivering and how it's going to change the experience that they have.
Thank
you. This question is more directed towards Laura. And my question is, you spoke about earlier how a lot of state agencies and local municipalities do not actually have the ITS data. For example, in North Carolina, we don't keep on cloud the CCTV cameras, whatever data that comes from the cameras, we don't keep it on file. How do state agencies, you know, go from the point where we don't even want the data anyway to, you know, to where we're gonna collect it and also try to provide it to where to make everything more safer and efficient for civilians and also for the agency?
So I think there's a lot of new solutions out there with edge computing, right? Where you're getting, because you're right, there's a lot of agencies that either can't or don't want to keep certain data or footage for privacy reasons, which we understand. But one option is partnerships, right? Having a partnership with the right private sector provider who can process and house that data for you. So what the agency's getting is this anonymized, aggregated data. Also doing it at the edge, right? Where you're like, you know, or like a lot of times vehicles are processing on the vehicle, right? So that you're not sharing that data beyond who needs to. But I think a lot of, what I will say is actually state agencies have tons of ITS data. And in fact, maybe they have so much, but the challenge is fusing the data sets that they need together and processing that data to get the right results. That's the big challenge. There's a lot of data out there, but we don't necessarily have the insights from the data because of these disparate systems and because of the sheer volume. But there are ways to do that, and there are emerging new ways at lower cost to be able to do some of this, you know, edge compute and stuff right there without having to send things to the cloud. And then I think in some ways, I think that helps protect the agency from, you know, with privacy concerns and such.
Thank you for that. I want to thank Bernard, Laura, and Mitch this morning for coming before us and sharing their expertise. I mean, we've got a long way to go, for sure. A lot of work to do. And these discussions are just monumental as we continue to make transportation safer for everyone across the nation. We appreciate each one of you for coming this morning and for sharing your thoughts and experiences with us. I'd like to invite now Tess to give us our closing remarks.
Thank you, Robin, and thank all of our speakers again. It's very, very insightful this morning. And thank all of you for joining us for this time this morning and all of the information that we've received. If you haven't done so already, please check out the vendors in our exhibit hall. You will find some very impressive technology and companies on display there. This now concludes our session, and please enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you.